هذا قبر الصليب فكوا فيه.
يا شباب ما تسمعوا بالشباب يقول لكم مشوا خلينا خليكم بعيد بس يا جماعه.
بغير تعال شوف العلامه اللي عليها، تعال قدام. في حتى كتيبه اسرائيليه من اللوطه عبريه.
نتيجه صير هو هذا.
ايوه كسره بالجنبه.
يا جنبه في من لوطه يا رب.
ترى تبزغ واحد. جنني. هذا شكله رضي والديه باش يضيع.
At David Axelrod. It has become so formulaic. 1. A mass shooting. 2. Politicians state as disrespectful to raise questions about the ready availability of weapons of war while people are breathing. 3. Times passes. 4. Nothing happens. And then we do it all over again. Madness sickening. A sound thought to be a gunshot put North Broward Preparatory School in Coconut Creek on lockdown Thursday morning. At Briang Plaza. The last mass school shooting in the UK happened in 1996. It sparked stricter gun laws. There haven't been any major school shootings in the last 22 years. The US has already had 12 school shootings, including one of the worst in US history, in the first 6 weeks of 2018. At Seth Abramson. This press conference is horrifying. Florida Pam Bundy is telling how much she has been on the phone and how GoFundMe sites can pay for funeral and hospital expenses. A sheriff is demanding more money for his department. These people have no answers for gun violence. None. At Stefan Molino. In September, a YouTube user named Nicholas Cruz left a comment on a video stating, "I am going to be a professional school shooter." Both FB and YouTube were warned. The Nicholas Cruz YouTube account remained active until Wednesday evening. Fucking bravo YouTube. At Lear Boss. Ask yourself why mass shooters don't target hospitals with dozens of helpless people like schools. Because hospitals have guards, officers, and sometimes their own PD. Nothing deters a coward faster than a good guy with a gun. Gun reform no. At Fox News, at Jim Jordan, at Jim Jordan. This guy broke law. He obviously brought a weapon to gun-free zone.
This killer had. It was visible. His anger was visible. His willingness and ability to carry something out like this out was visible. Why wasn't something done?
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to see how much, where he got the weapon and if there was any type of, things that should have been noticed during that process or what. But it's hard to say. There's sometimes evil and bad things happen, and we wish they didn't. But hopefully we can have where this doesn't happen as much in the future. I don't know what else to say, and we can hope our culture and country, just doesn't have as many of these things take place as we move forward.
Congressman, there are a lot of conversations this morning. Obviously, this has already gone political to the gun control debate and conversation, but there's also a lot of talk about government's responsibility with social media. As you do see those disturbing images of his accounts, whether it was Instagram or Facebook, is there a bigger role that government should be playing with the social media companies to track things like this down?
No, we got to be careful. We'll see, but look, the First Amendment's pretty darn important. That's why it's the First Amendment and the Second Amendment as well. And it seems like whenever we have one of these tragedies take place, there are always folks who want to infringe on fundamental liberties that we as Americans enjoy. So, look, on the Second Amendment, we got an endless number of gun control laws and regulations currently on the books. So I don't know that more of those is going to stop evil like this when it takes place. I always say bad people aren't, they're bad people. They're going to get around the law and do something bad if they're bent on doing that. So we got to be real careful about restricting fundamental liberties. Where we can do it in a way that's consistent with the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, then I think we should be open to that. But we got to be careful about that.
What we do know is this killer did it.
It doesn't get much colder than this. Lock them up.
Resolve it. But when the rubber meets the road, they have yet to bring forward a single proposal that gives us a realistic chance to make law. That is, pass the Senate, pass the House, and earn the president's signature. All they've done so far is to slow the process as much as possible. Turns out they didn't want a fair, open, freewheeling amendment process after all. Yesterday evening, I filed cloture on all 4 pending amendments. At a minimum, under the regular order, we can make sure at least they receive a vote by Friday morning. I hope the Democratic leader will finally consent to hold these votes on amendments today.
Hillary shows up at Costco unprepared and gets massive dose of karma in the milk aisle. Former First Lady Hillary Clinton arrived at a Costco very unprepared for what they had in store. What she may have expected to be one thing, ultimately turned out to be something much different. She probably wasn't ready for this level of treatment from Costco, but perhaps someone responsible for this felt like splashing a cold serving of karma towards her. Clinton was at a Costco in Brookfield, Connecticut as part of her book tour. She showed up and Costco told her where to go. She didn't have to do much except for sign a handful of books for a few people who were there to see her, but she didn't expect what Costco had planned for her. As a former First Lady to then-President Bill Clinton, who was caught in scandals in the White House within term,
News and current affairs from Germany and around the world. DW.
And a red carpet at Costco. That was not the case. You wouldn't know that Hillary lived in the White House after seeing where Costco placed her to sign books. As customers walked in, some walked right by and didn't care. A few others stood in line and waited. The funny part is that Costco placed Hillary Clinton right next to a massive stockpile of toilet paper packages. We're not sure if it was 1-ply or 2-ply. This was at the end of the milk aisle. Milk and toilet paper is what Costco thought of Hillary Clinton that day. You might have your own opinion, but you can save that for the comments section after the article. Hillary was stationed at the end of the milk aisle, sitting next to toilet paper, signing a few autographs. Not everyone was interested. Some people protested and Hillary was not prepared for that level of interaction. It became very awkward.
Accused of harboring Paris attackers, the Ash landlord cleared of charges. France 24.
Hillary held a book signing inside a Costco, where she signed 1,000 copies of her memoir What Happened. But it didn't go quite as she likely hoped it would go. Laura Luna, an investigative journalist, showed up and reported on what went down. But Hillary's people were apparently on Loomer, and refused to let her see Hillary. Costco's members were not pleased with the book signing. Loomer claims that an employee told her that people were canceling their memberships because
1 in 6 children live in war zones, Save the Children says News. DW 15 2.2018.
Protesting. They held up signs and chanted, Hillary for prison.
Google Assad network quietly becomes huge growth engine.
I think it's a disgrace that Costco has Hillary Clinton. She's a criminal. Still, not everyone was angry about Hillary's presence. Some thought it was laudable that she came into enemy territory. The small town of Brookfield, Connecticut has not voted for a Democrat for president in decades, and the majority of residents voted for Donald Trump last year.
Zimbabwe opposition leader and Mugabe rival Morgan Tsvangirai dies of cancer at 65. France 24.
Said he claimed that he came because his 9-year-old daughter asked him to. Certainly, anytime a 9-year-old is interested in meeting such an important public figure,
China wants to make a marking space, but it'll need a little help wired.
Example for little girls regardless of your political views. Others were not as excited. Oh my God. Her? Said Christian Beck, a Trump supporter. I had negative feelings about Clinton because of some of the things that she's done. She still thinks a lot about herself. I'm sorry, but she needs to get off her horse. She lost. That's it. Here's a photograph of some Hillary Clinton protesters. She most likely didn't think she would feel the wrath of the American people while she was on her book tour. It was supposed to be all about
these companies are changing how Asia thinks about food.
Before her book tour, Hillary Clinton had become the Democrat nominee for the presidential election.
HomePod review only Apple devotees need apply wired.
Clinton surpassed Bernie Sanders in what may have been considered a controversial way. Clinton later squared up against rookie Donald Trump, who had no political experience but ran a much better campaign that appealed to a higher number of Americans where the votes counted. California provided an extra amount of popular votes for Hillary Clinton. However, the electoral ballot helped protect the elections from having the same few more expensive and more populated states from determining every outcome. Trump's campaign spoke of America being the priority, and his business background is keeping the economy moving. If the popular vote was the only way to decide, then
freedom and the minimum wage. Alex Jones info hours. There is a war for your mind.
Based merely on the size of the state and the number of people living there.
Sports thrive in North Korea despite sanctions.
Supporters still resist the presidency of Donald Trump, regardless of Trump's wild levels of historic success.
Today we're doing a gender reveal. Today we're doing a gender reveal. We have a bucket of blue water and a bucket of pink water.
A firefighter training session turned out to be very informative for a fireman and his wife, because they finally learned the gender of the child.
I be tromping around on the internet. Insanity, it's utter insanity out there. The New York Times hash fires tech writer Quinn Norton, and it has complicated bar wired. Hold up, you have to see this.
Had about another 5 minutes onto our training to be able to do this for us.
Justin Tubbs is a member of the City of Decatur Fire and Rescue, and his fellow first responders were all too eager to help him and his wife Erica learn
Tuesday
more
afternoon,
about
the New York Times announced it was hiring an opinion writer named Quinn Norton to write about the power, culture, and consequences of technology. Late Tuesday night, the Times fired her. Norton, the writer activist who covered, among other things, the Occupy and Anonymous movements for Wired in the 2000s, has been an outspoken voice for hackers, the open source and free speech communities, and people working on digital security and privacy. She has been a chronicler and target of harassment online and in the physical world, and she was the romantic partner and friend of Aaron Swartz, the renowned coder and activist who committed suicide in the face of a federal investigation of his activities. Norton knows the field, in other words. But even as congratulations Twitter spun up for Norton, Detective Twitter did a double take. People resurfaced old tweets in which Norton employed derogatory terms for African Americans and gay people, words I find difficult to even type, frankly. About which more in a moment, and writing where she evinced friendships with well-known neo-Nazis. This took all of a couple hours, and I've been on enough HR-related conference calls to imagine what kinds of meetings people at the Times were having. How did we miss this? Does it matter? Is she racist or is she just using racist words? We hired her because she is connected and complicated. Arguably one of the world's experts on the ebb and flow of online communities, Norton didn't exactly try to defend herself. The use of "way" find me a better way to say this than the N-word, but okay was part of an ill-conceived retweet of John Perry Barlow, who was trying to make a point about racists. Those similarly foreclosed upon words referring to gay people were sometimes, Norton said, because she herself has been active in the queer community and were covered by in-group privilege, and sometimes because she was code-switching to the language of 4chan and other online groups that use vile epithets like hooks use salt.
You know, we thought it was like
Complicated.
maybe some drums
And
or
as
like
Norton
the
is a
band or
journalist
something.
covering free speech and
And
privacy
my
issues
classmate at the
online,
time was
maybe
in
this
the
kind of
hallway,
language
and
isn't
he
just
came
allowed but
running
appropriate. She
and
is
knocked on the
speaking the
door,
language of the people she writes
panicking,
about.
and said,
I always find the
open the
weirdest
door,
things.
open the door. We open the door and we're like, what's going on? He's like, Miss Jacobson, that was real gunshots. Miss Jacobson's my English teacher who I was with the whole time.
As world powers continue diplomatic efforts aimed at reaching a settlement to the conflict in Syria, Lebanese political science expert Imad Salami discusses the essential elements of possible power sharing arrangements in the war-torn country.
We just had one earlier during second period. And we just heard gunshots again.
And so did you barricade yourselves inside the classroom?